It's that time of year, everything is growing, everything is blossoming. If you want to find out how to make certain that your garden continues to grow, stay tuned. We've got a master gardener with us today. I am so excited. I'm actually giddy. We've got Lucy here, who is a master gardener. And with this beautiful spring weather we've been having, it is time to start thinking about gardener. Thank you for joining us today for Real Possibilities. Lucy, you are the president of Oakland County Master Garden Society.
That's right.
You're making me very nervous because the only thing I think I ever grown was nothing. But anyway, so thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what a master gardener means. What's the certification? How do you get that title?
So you work with MSU Extension and take a class with them. It's a 40-hour class over 12 weeks. And then you do volunteer hours, 40 hours a year for the first year, 20 hours a year after that. And you take some continuing education as well. But the training classes really help me understand that it's not all mystery and magic. There's science behind it, and it's something that everyone can do.
So how did you get interested in becoming a master gardener? When you ask a little child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you say, I want to be a master gardener?
Oh, for heaven's sake, no. I was going to be the astronaut ballerina like everyone else. So I learned about master gardener from my mother-in-law way back, and she said she was a master gardener. I went, well, look at you. Yeah. And much, much later, after I married my husband, I said, a different husband.
But a good mother-in-law, right?
A great mother-in-law. But we really were doing a lot of gardening, and I looked into taking the classes. So you can look it up on the MSU Extension website to learn how to get into the Master Gardener classes.
So in the 15, 20 minutes that we have, I'm not going to end up being able to say that I'm a certified master gardener, but I can tell you what one does. So let's get us started. This is, Michigan.
Yes.
We're not in California. We can't do grapes on the rooftop and all that. So what are some of the things that people need to know about planting and what to plant and when to plant it?
The mantra is right plant, right place.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. When I first planted something, there was a spot in my yard that had nothing growing in it. And I said, that's a great place to put something. It wasn't until after I took the Master Gardener classes, I went, well, maybe there was nothing growing there because that soil isn't very good. So you need to plant the shady plants in the shady areas and the plants that love sunshine in the sunny areas. I've tried to trick my plants and say, this area has enough sun, but the plants know better than I do.
Yeah, they talk to you, right?
Read those tags that you see at the nurseries and believe them, because that's what you're going to do. The other thing that I see a lot is somebody who will put these bushes right up against the house. And they don't read the thing that says it's going to get this big around. And then they spend the next 20 years hacking away at the thing. Yeah. So believe the sizes that are on those tags and believe the locations they want you to put them.
What about vegetables? I love there's nothing like fresh vegetables. I mean, you can go to any farmer's market or whatever and versus a grocery store. And I love grocery stores too. But fresh vegetables out of your own backyard is just, there's nothing like that. So what do we need to know about planting vegetables?
Well, for the most part, almost without exception, you need a lot of sunshine, at least 6 to 8 hours of sunshine a day during the growing season. And you got to wait. I know it's early spring, but we have to wait until the ground is at a temperature warm enough to really do the planting. You can go to almanac.com and put in your zip code, and it'll tell you what your last frost dates are.
Oh, great.
Or even when to plant things.
Right.
And so early spring, if you can't stand it and you have to get out, go out there and plant some radishes, some peas, or spinach. Those things can take a little bit of an ebb and flow if it frosts again.
What about indoor planting?
Indoor
Can you start inside and then?
It's the best thing to do. It kind of gives your plants a head start.
Okay.
And so what you'll get to do is you can buy the seeds and then grow them in your house under some. Well, you can put them in the window, but mostly there's not enough sunshine there. We have at our house, we've got grow lights that we have above it. We actually take a little oscillating fan too to pretend we have wind and the plants don't get all leggy and spindly.
Yeah.
So, but plant the seeds. It's time to start planting tomatoes or broccoli or It's on my list. I'm sorry.
Oh, tomatoes, broccoli, indoors. Here's a list. Yeah.
Here's a list now. Tomatoes, basil, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, eggplants. They need to grow for about 6 to 8 weeks before it's ready to go outside. And at that time, finally, spring has sprung, and it's going to be warm enough.
And you'll get that 6 to 8 hours of sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about tomatoes? People like growing tomatoes. Do you start them inside or outside?
Well, I start them inside. Or you can go to your local nursery, but you need to wait until after the ground gets about 60 degrees.
Okay.
So
it stays that.
Yeah, you need it. Well, it'll stay that once it gets to a temperature. But if you plant them too early, they'll freeze to death. They'll get too cold. And also, if you get a handful of your soil and squish it like this, if it stays in a ball of mud, it's too wet to do it yet. So you wanna if it kind of crumbles and collapses, it's the good moisture level for doing the planting time too.
So you've got to put your hands in the dirt, and you got to touch that soil, and you got to squish it around, and you got to make certain that it's crumbly and not just.
Yeah, because they'll drown.
Yes.
Poor things.
And so what happens? Okay, I've got all these beautiful plants. You see my tomatoes and my carrots and my peppers and then here comes the rabbits, and here come the deer, and how do I protect them? Because I don't want to spray them, or.
Well, my grandma just overplanted. Oh. She said they have to eat too.
I'm not your grandma. Sorry,
I don't necessarily buy into that. In our garden, we have a deer fence up around it. Okay. It's an 8-foot tall fence all the way around it. You could also use a chemical thing. I can't name names because we're not supposed to name names with MSU. You're supposed to read the labels on the back of the stuff. But if you can spray the plants and they'll stay away from it until it rains, and then you go out and do it again.
And do little wire fences help around there, or do you have to, like for the rabbit, just anything that an animal can't get over, right?
A deer, if you really want deer to keep out, you need 8 feet.
Yeah.
Because those little babies, they can jump.
That's why we haven't planted
Especially if you've got some really yummy stuff on the other side.
Yeah, they'll eat anything green.
Yes.
Just about, except for evergreen trees. Ask me how I know, but you're right.
But for bunnies and stuff, you'll need a fence also, smaller gauge or whatever, mesh. And for bunnies and groundhogs and things, you need to dig that down.
Do you feed your plants weekly, daily? Do you feed them? I mean, your vegetables and flowers?
We feed them with compost and mulch.
Oh.
Okay, well, the mulch compost. But you can probably go to your city offices and get mulch or compost straight from the city. If you in different places that you live, it's available, and it's free
like a good
if
job
you live
for
in
my
those
husband.
cities.
That sounds like a really good job.
It is. It's a great job for your husband. You can go to your local deli and say, "What are you doing with all those 5-gallon pickle buckets?"
Oh.
And then they'll say, "You want some?" And before you know it, you've got a garage stacked full of 5-gallon pickle buckets.
Well, let's show people what we need to know about planting. You bought some beautiful.
I brought pansies because
pansies and the vases.
It's a good time to plant. If you can't stand it and you have to plant now, pansies can take it. There's a whole lot of stuff that's just too early for, but if you want some flowers and you want to plant an annual, I'd go with the pansy or viola.
Will they last all summer?
No, really, they don't like the heat.
Okay.
So they'll probably keel over late June.
And then you put something else in the right spot.
And then you have something else there.
Coming in, yes.
Now, I love putting in perennials because that's what we need to do.
Absolutely.
That'll save you some work because then you don't have to do it next year.
Right, you don't have to bend over as many times.
That's right. You don't have to bend over. So we just brought this. I brought you some gloves so you don't have to get dirty.
Okay. So you can make me work a little bit here.
Yeah, you get one.
All right.
Thank
you. All right.
And what we're going to do is just put some soil. We're not supposed to call it dirt. Dirt is something you sweep under the rug.
Oh. Okay, so we're going to put our soil.
You're going to put your soil in here, so we get the little...
All right, so you put some soil. How much soil do you know, like if you've got a plant this size,
well, that's...
that's your turn now, right?
My turn now.
How do you know how much soil to put in there? Do you cover the roots? Do you get up to...
Okay, I can't think of any exceptions. You plant down at the level that the plant's growing in. Don't go deeper, don't go higher.
Okay, so
if you see people planting stuff higher or deeper, go tell them they're doing it wrong and to take the Master Gardener classes.
All right.
So now this is stuck. Okay.
There we go.
Is something coming out?
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes you have to rip the roots off the bottom so that you can get the thing out.
Look at that. Oh.
So this looks a little root bound, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I killed it. Okay.
This is a master gardener who just killed a pansy, and it's
That's
been
right.
reported on television, right?
That's okay. That's okay.
It's quite okay, because I bet you can make it come back to life again, right?
Well, I don't know that I'd take that time. I'd probably just, put that to the side. This is amazingly root bound. So what I usually do is I kind of...
Oh, you disturb the roots.
I do. And then it's, because right now it's spinning around the pot, spinning and spinning. It's getting a little crazy.
So they need to spread out and grow a little bit, huh?
Yeah, and so you just kind of dig in that little hole there where we had it. I can put a couple in this spot. And put it down to the level that it was at. I think you only have really room for one there.
Yeah. And put it down to what level, like right here?
Yeah, right up here.
Okay.
All the way down.
If I had a seed, just read the envelope and see what's on the seed to see how deep to plant a seed, like if I was planting a vegetable
that's my go-to phrase, read what's on the package.
Yes.
Because some of them need to go 1.5 inches down, others, I can't believe how much roots are on this. All right.
It's not down
go
deep
deeper.
enough.
Go deeper.
Okay, go deeper. You've been telling me all my life. Don't be shallow, go deeper.
And then you can just put a little more soil around it.
And how do you know how much to water? Just read the package again, right?
No, actually, I don't have that. You know what? Leaves turn yellow when they don't get watered enough. Leaves turn yellow when you water them too much.
Oh, okay.
Mostly you just, for me, it's still trial and error. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
But yeah,
and the same thing's true for vegetables. When you're planting vegetables, is that how much water do they need? Like tomatoes, peppers, how much water every day? Wait for the rain? Do you?
Oh, you don't want to wait for the rain. Even if the rain's predicted, it's a lie. And you're going to need to. It's better if you take some of this potting mix and get it a little damp ahead of time.
It's better if you do this outside too, right?
Yeah, right. It's not my studio.
And you don't have to clean up, right?
So anyway, you can do this and put some out.
Look at that. That looks pretty. Why does yours look better? You have two in yours. You've got three in yours.
Two. Yeah, no, I just put in two. It's just a small pot.
Pretty. Yeah.
So
that makes me feel better already. And knowing, that you've got flowers around, that you planted yourself, there's something really, I don't know, mental or psychological about that too, that you are making the world look a little bit prettier, a little more beautiful. Yeah.
So in your own garden, if you've got a fencing around it, it will deter some of the beasties. If you've got a dog, let the dog run.
Oh, that will help too. Is that good fertilizer?
No. That's to keep the deer away.
Just keep the deer away. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard that really helps with the deer. What's your favorite thing to plant? What's your favorite vegetable or?
Oh, well. In addition to the Master Gardener Society, I'm also a member of the Southeastern Michigan Dahlia Society.
Okay. Oh,
and
dahlias.
My husband and I grow national champion dahlias that we compete at a national level.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
These things grow as tall as you.
Really?
And some of the flowers, okay, mine never are this big, but some of the flowers can get this big.
Now, are those perennials?
They're a tender perennial. If you lived in Mexico, they're perennials.
Okay.
If you live here, you dig them up every fall and put them back out in the spring.
Oh, you dig them up and bring them in the house?
They make tubers like a potato.
Oh.
And so we dig up the roots and we save those and then start them again in the spring.
So this is a lot of work. You have to have a passion for doing this. If you're doing nationally, particularly you're doing national competitions for dahlias, you're planting pansies, you're planting fruits and vegetables. Do you plant fruits as well?
I learned in that training class that fruits are really, really hard. You should never complain about the price of a raspberry again. That's it. I'm not doing raspberries. There's a lot of work to do. Same with apples. I mean, if someone called them slicing apples.
Yeah.
If you don't spray your apple trees, you might want to call them slicing apples because you don't ever want to find half a worm, right?
Oh.
But if you slice it away, then everything is still yummy.
Yeah, then you open it up. Should we be teaching younger children about the garden and the earth and growing and planting? I mean, I don't know that we do enough of that. Appreciation of the earth that we live in and how to take care of it. I know there are a lot of young folks who are really engaged and involved with environmental issues and climate control issues. So we want to make certain that that people learn about the earth and learn about what's going on around them, right?
Well, I mean, my kids loved to do the gardening with me when they were real little. Then they got older, they tried to run away.
Yeah.
But my daughter's coming back around now.
Yes,
She's like, people are asking her at work, well, what should I do here? And then she'll answer them and she'll call me later. What am I supposed to do? Was that right, Mom? I said, yeah, you were right. I said, didn't believe you were paying attention. But yeah, use your smaller people, and especially teenagers, to help you with splitting.
Well, I know as a grandmother, sometimes, and there are a lot of AARP grandmothers. It's grandmothers I love working in the garden with the grandchildren. We used to go strawberry picking. What about growing strawberries? Strawberries, they're very nice. They work with you, and they're down there, and you can find them. I still go to the You Pick strawberry places because there's so many more of them. Yes. But I mean, planting bulbs in the fall. Yeah. When my kids were little, I had one in charge of I dug the hole, and one put in some fertilizer, thank you. Yes. And the other put in the bulb, and the last one covered it up. And so we just kind of worked our way across the room. So don't keep those kids from doing it, because it'll grow. Right. And you just mistakes are fine. You just brought up another good point too about bulbs and when to plant bulbs. So what bulbs do you plant in the fall? That people should know about? What can be planted in the fall and expect to? Do you have to? How do you take care of them? We do the crocuses and the snowdrops and daffodils and tulips are the main ones, and those will all grow. You put them in right before it frosts, and what's happening is it actually is growing down underneath the soil through the winter, at least. First part of the winter. Right. So it's ready to shoot up and give you that bloom in the early spring. Yeah. I've watched so many like home and garden shows and other places as well. And roses, some people have roses, they have violets. How do you know the soil in your own yard? Can you test the soil? Can you find out what? Well, this is my another plug for MSU. Yes. MSU will do soil testing for you. It's a really minimal fee. And I think these days you just put some of the soil in a Ziploc bag and mail it to the mailing address. So you look up soil tests on MSU, and they'll give you the instructions on how to do it. But they want you to take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and a little bit from over there. And I thought underneath my pine tree was going to be very acidic, and over here it was going to be more basic. Right. It was the same. So once they give you that, let's say I want to plant something by that pine tree or over here, can I change the makeup of the soil, the DNA of the soil? Yeah. Not really. Okay. I mean, you can. And the main thing you really want to do is compost. Okay. If you say, what are you going to do to get ready for the spring? I'm spreading a lot of compost in the fall. Okay. Right after I dug everything out, put out a lot of compost. And then in the spring, if you forgot to do that, put out more compost. When I first started, I said, aren't you going to bury the plants? Yeah, right, with all the compost, right. The plants can cope with it. They'll grow up so that... Do the leaves that come down in the fall, do they make good compost for the... They do. Yeah. And actually, you should just leave everything that falls. Oh, really? What about your grass? I'm not a real proponent of turf. It's not really my thing. But you can rake up over the grass. But to me, grass, a big lawn, is a desert for butterflies and birds. There's nothing there for them to eat. But if you've got perennial plants that grow or natural to that location, that's going to feed the animals for that location. And you sound like your mother now, or your ex-mother-in-law now. I know. Sorry. We're planning enough to feed the animals. We're talking about feeding us and making our lawn look beautiful. I'm not thinking about feeding the animals. So there's lots of native plants and things that you can eat. If you're really looking for some kinds of perennials that you want to be planting around here, my favorites are purple coneflowers and black-eyed Susans, because they'll just come back and come back. They'll spread. And they last almost all summer, don't they? They start blooming at the end of July and go all the way through hard frost. Black-eyed Susans and purple coneflowers. Purple coneflowers. And do the deer eat those? Not as much. They just nibble.
They're native to here, and
Right.
so are the deer. So they must win.
Well, everybody has to eat, right? And
Yeah.
hopefully, as you listen to this session on Real Possibilities, you will find we've got some tips here today in terms of how you can start your own fresh vegetable garden, and you can eat healthier and stay alive longer by eating healthier. Thank you for watching. I don't know what we did, but it was fun.
Okay.
It was fun. Thank you. Thanks so much for watching Real Possibilities.
Good morning, Craig. We're going to talk about inflation today. I'm so happy that you're here. Everyone's worried, concerned about inflation. What do we need to know?
Good morning, Paula. Yeah, inflation typically has been a topic of conversation when people start to approach or get into retirement. There's a wide variety of areas that we try to combat with inflation, especially when we're talking about investment portfolios and whatnot. A couple of areas that typically are nice hedges against inflation. A lot of people talk about commodities, get involved in commodities like gold and silver. But in many circumstances, the actual growth of gold and silver is only about 2.5% over longer periods of time. And when I recall, a lot of people like to be retired for maybe 15, 20, maybe even 30 years if possible. So we need to have strategies in place that actually are great hedges against inflation. In many circumstances, those is value investing, buying into companies such as utility companies, energy companies, ones that are paying a solid dividend. And there are several different types of strategies that help us to grow those portfolios over time, but not just grow the value of the portfolios, grow the income as well. So there have been several companies out there that actually have been increasing their dividends, not only over every year over 10, 15 years, but many of them have actually expanded and grown their dividends and income for 30, 40, and 50 years and continue to do so. Those is one of the primary ways we've been able to offset inflationary pressures, especially during retirement.
That's good information. And for people who want more information, we certainly encourage them to contact their financial advisor or professional. And inflation is cyclical, right? It comes and goes.
We hope in many circumstances, but unfortunately it comes more than it goes.
Well, thank you, Craig. That's excellent information for our viewing audience. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Paula.
Amy, thank you for being with us again today. We want to talk about, summertime, springtime, holidays. What's your advice about taking people out of a long-term care facility on a short excursion?
Well, it depends on where they're at in their dementia. It has a lot to do with interrupting that routine. So even if it's someone at home, with dementia, the more routine it is, the better it is, because it's something that they're not going to be surprised about. Somebody's not, nobody likes surprise parties or scary things, when they're not really expecting it. So I kind of liken it to being in a haunted house and you just, you're walking through and then all of a sudden something jumps out at you, and you don't want that kind of surprise, because that's going to aggravate and upset. And you want to make sure that when you're taking someone out of an assisted living or memory care for a day trip or things like that, you want to keep it as low key as you can, just simply because nobody wants to be, interrupted in their day. And this is something new and surprising, and they may not be able to process that fast enough. So you just got to kind of judge the time and listen to their nurses and doctors and see what they think about how that would work. And obviously always ask, do you want to go? It's not something that somebody thinks about, but yeah, you definitely have to ask and show that respect.
Is there any advantage to taking them to places that they know, where to their own home? Is that better than taking them somewhere that they've not seen before, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because the whole point is to jog that memory back. You want to bring back those lucid moments when they're remembering their children or remembering their grandchildren and remembering, their own childhood. So absolutely. That's always a good idea.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. Excellent information. As always, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking today. So good to see you all again. We're going to talk a little bit about fall prevention, particularly in the winter months in Michigan. Talk about what people can do to prevent falls.
Oh, it's horrible. We hear this story every day, you know, and it's not a shock. I mean, it's wintertime, right? You're supposed to be thinking about that, but you know, there's not been a lot of snow out there.
Thank goodness.
And so people are saying, well, I'm going to let my guard down. But every day I have patients tell me, I fell yesterday. Oh, I fell 3 times. And lots of times it's in situations they're just not expecting. Snow is melting, kind of makes that little trail from there, and then it freezes later on. They will go back out to the car and boom. But the thing I hear about most often is right out their back deck. They go out there, let the dog out, or they went to get the mail or did something, and boom, down they go. And so our concerns has always been fractured hips, closed head injuries, and stuff like that. So the one thing I wanted to kind of put through was, look, don't forget, it's wintertime. I know you're thinking about falling, not falling, but keep that in your brain because it's real important and we hear it every day. Don't you hear it every day?
So Courtney, we've got like about a minute left. So how do people prevent themselves? What do they do?
So making sure everything's iced, making sure everything's plowed, checking the area before you go somewhere, making sure there's no ice there, making sure the elevations are correct. I had a patient that slipped and fell because she didn't see the curb. So she slipped on that. Making sure that handrails are there, proper lighting, asking for assistance, using canes, walkers, not making sure you just run out really quick without them when you use them regularly in the house.
And then there's the notorious fall at night as you get up to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
Oh, we all love that one.
Yes.
You know.
So it's not just in your own home.
Yeah.
I'm outside. It's in your own
It
home.
is. That's right. So just remember, don't fall down.
Yes.
What do people trip over in their own home the most? What do
The dog.
The dog.
Rugs are a big one,
Yeah.
especially in the kitchen.
Yes. Yeah. And so at night when they get up, they should
sit up, make sure they're not feeling lightheaded, nauseous, just hang out for a minute before they get up and stand.
And it does help to have a little light available.
Yeah, it sure does. Night lights.
Great tips. Hopefully that's news that you can use. Thank you. Thanks for being here. There was some great information that was shared with you today. Hopefully there was some news that you can use. And don't forget, try planting your own garden.